Hey, my name is Charlie Pioli, the owner and founder of O-Town Compost. I'm here to just demonstrate how to set up a worm bin and talk about all the great benefits of having a worm bin. There's three primary reasons that worm bins are so awesome. If you're a fisherman and you love to catch worms to use as bait, or number two, to recycle your food scraps. These worms chomp through about a pound of food waste a day. The fun statistic is for worms eat their body weight in food waste per day. And number three is that their castings, what they excrete, makes a great garden fertilizer. So here's just a simple worm bin that I've put together. Very cheap plastic tub you get at Home Depot with a lid, because the lid kind of protects any critters from getting in, and it can lock, but you want to drill some holes in to allow the worm some air. And then you start the bin by adding some bedding. I use my compost, O-Town Black Gold I like to call it, but you can use shredded leaves or shredded paper, peat moss, anything really. Then you want to take a watering can and moisturize it, really get it nice and wet because the worms like that wetness. And then add your food waste in there, and be warned, if you're adding your food waste, you're bound to get volunteer starts. I have a bunch of mini papayas that are just coming up because I fed them papayas maybe a month ago. And I think I want to get my helper, Sophie. Can we try to find some worms in here? We have this one worm that is the biggest worm in here named Big Willie, and Sophie has a good eye for it. Sophie, see if you can find Big Willie. Oh, yep. I found her. Yep, there's Big Willie. So these are Florida red wigglers, which are the most pervasive type of worm there. They really withstand the heat well, and you want to keep your worm bin in the shade because the heat can really roast them. And Florida red wigglers are also they multiply very quickly, probably every 4 weeks or so. And Sophie, what else do you have to say about worms?
They are slimy, and when you put the water on them.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
A good thing.
Yes. Okay. That's how you start a worm bin. Thank you.
What about the holes along the outside? Is that good for aeration?
Yeah, you should definitely put holes in the lid and around the outside for aeration.
Mm-hmm. Maybe talk a little bit generally about composting, like the ratio of carbon and food waste and things like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my perspective on compost is at first, as a novice, I approached it geez, this is going to be hard to really make finished compost, that black, crumbly gold that they show you. And really, it's not that difficult. Here in Florida or anywhere you go, you have access to the carbon component, which are your browns. And you're going to have plenty of access to the green component, the nitrogen component. And that the nitrogen I use for my composting is food waste. Or you could use manure is another great example. But browns come in the form of wood chips or leaves. Horse manure is a great example of a perfectly balanced raw material that has the 30-to-1 brown to green ratio, which is what you need for an active compost pile. So I like to use horse manure because after it composts, it also crumbles into that beautiful black soil. Also, moisture content is important. You want to have your moisture content in like the 50 to 60 range, which I just eyeball because it's pretty easy to tell if your pile's dried out or it's gotten soggy from just the rain not being able to drain out of the pile. But as long as you have proper aeration and drainage, and you're making the right formula of browns and greens, you're essentially, it's going to be easy to make a compost pile. There's two types of composting: aerated composting and aerobic composting and anaerobic composting. Anaerobic means without oxygen. It's really where you get your browns and your greens, mix them together, and then like either tarp it or just find a way to shut off the oxygen supply. It will compost, but there is a thing called methane, a greenhouse gas that's very harmful. And when organic material has no access to oxygen, methane is bound to form and go up into the ozone layer. So it's harmful, but you will get finished compost. I like to use the aerated composting, where I actually force air into my piles using blowers, and that is a great way to introduce beneficial microbes, bacteria, and I use the aerated static pile method where you don't need to turn, but the reason people turn their compost piles is to introduce a more uniform distribution of air across their pile. But this method, the static method, you have PVC pipes where you just blow air into the pile as it sits there, and it takes about 60 days. Boom, you have finished compost. So
maybe talk a little bit about sun and heat.
Yeah, so there's this myth out there that your compost pile needs to be in the full sun, and from my experience, that's not true. I think that myth was formed because people couldn't get their pile hot enough. You want your pile in the range of 130 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything lower than that, it's not killing the weed seeds, fly larvae, or the pathogens. So be careful. I wouldn't recommend using that compost for growing food in it unless it's hitting those desirable temperatures. What I do recommend when you're looking to site your compost pile is finding an area without like suckers from a nearby tree growing up into the pile, because those will grow up right underneath your pile and leach the nutrients. And also, speaking of leaching the nutrients, when you have a finished pile of compost, you want to put a tarp over it so as not to create any leachate runoff, but also not to lose those nutrients that you work so hard to build.
Perfect. Maybe plug yourself.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Charlie, the founder owner of O-Town Compost, a new community composter on the scene of Orlando and Orange County, Florida. Shout out to Ali because she's been so helpful. But yeah, currently our list of subscribers are growing. We're up to like 45 new subscribers, and we're giving these people 5-gallon buckets, a compostable liner, and a lid. They fill it up with their food scraps. We come every week or every other week to swap it out for a new bin. We take it back to our composting site, turn it into black gold, and return it to the community. We're partnered with Fleet Farming right now, which they receive donations of compost, but also it goes right back to our subscribers who use it in their gardens as well. Yeah, and we're just hoping to make as big of an impact as we can, divert as much food waste from Orange County landfill, save as much methane and waste as we can, while growing a sustainable business. Looking to hire a team soon where we can just all share a vision of equality, social justice, and environmentalism. So yeah, look out for O-Town Compost in the next couple of years.